The Topo Cyclone 2 was the best shoe you'd never heard of, and almost 2 years later, not a lot has changed, either with the shoe or how underrated it is. So allow me to reintroduce you to the Topo Cyclone 3. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kafuzi and I'm an elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Topo Cyclone 3. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Topo sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Topo Cyclone 3, and let's start with the specs. If you were familiar with Topo Cyclone 2, you're going to see that not a lot has changed. It is still a 28mm stack height shoe with a 5mm drop, giving us 23mm of that beaded P-backs goodness, and there is no plate. A lot of the geometry is still carried over from version 2, except for a very small tweak to the way that the back of the heel is designed. There's just a little bit less material back there, but otherwise it's pretty much an identical midsole shape. Protecting that midsole is a very thin amount of rubber, just 2mm thick, with plenty of cutouts to help out with giving that rubber a little bit more bite in terms of traction, but also cutting a little bit of weight from the overall package as well. Moving to the upper, that's where we see most of the changes for this year, but even then, there really aren't that many changes. We still see the same anatomical toe box, which means there's plenty of room across the width of your foot by the toes. There is a slight difference in the shape of the tongue, and I'm not sure that makes a huge difference. I can see it visually when I put the shoes next to each other side by side, but when wearing it, it to me felt pretty much the same. And similarly around the heel cup, it's still very flexible. There's a little bit of structure in here, but it's pretty floppy. And altogether, the shoe comes in at a very light sub 7 ounce weight. Topo reports that this comes in at 6.9 ounces or 195 grams. Now that we've talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the road. The Topo Cyclone 3, like its predecessor, is very fun for running fast. It's a very pure running experience as it feels like it's very low to the ground and it's a very flexible shoe. I think it's about as close as I ever want to get to feel like running barefoot on paved surfaces. One of the things I don't like about this shoe is that because it feels so low to the ground, I personally don't really love it for extended periods of easy running. Now I do a lot of warm up and cool down miles in it, and all my recovery paces are just fine in the shoe, but they don't feel like they're the most protective, and it's very different than the kind of thing that I look for my easy running. So it's in a sense similar to shoes like the Endorphin Speed and the Deviate Nitro in the sense that they're really fun for running workouts, but those shoes also do easy running very well, and this one I'd say is a little bit more focused on just running fast. And so the things that I enjoyed the Topo Cyclone 3 for is running that I would think would be too fast or a bit too intense for shoes like the Endorphin Speed 4 or the Deviate Nitro 3. The Topo Cyclone 3 just has a bit of extra lightweight snappiness to it. It has more of that road flat racer feel, although I'm not sure that I would want to necessarily race in this shoe, as for me, I personally love the feel of carbon plate in my shoes, especially my racers. And when I was deep into some very tough workouts in this shoe, I found myself kind of wishing that this shoe had a carbon plate in it. So for me, it's not really something that I would look for racing. But if you're the type of runner, maybe you're a 5K, 10K person, and you're doing a lot of 400-meter repeats or 200-meter repeats on the road or even on the track, and you don't necessarily want to be in spikes on the track, I feel like a shoe like the Topo Cyclone is going to be able to give you the kind of experience that you're looking for running really short, fast repetitions. And when it comes down to the fit of shoe, it has that anatomical toe box, so it's not crunching my toes in order for me to feel snug and connected to the midsole foam and to the ground as I'm trying to run quickly. And for that, I am very thankful. Now let's take a moment to step back and see where the Topo Cyclone 3 fits within the broader Topo lineup. Now, normally whenever I look at a running shoe brand, I usually start at the Daily Trainer. From Topo, that's the Phantom 3. And that's a shoe that I unfortunately haven't had a chance to try yet, but that's the shoe that would kind of sit in the center of a Topo rotation. It's the shoe that you reach for most of your running on most of the days. And the spot that the Cyclone 3 would fit in would be a shoe that you would use on days where you want to run a little bit faster for some of your workouts, something that you could probably race some 5Ks, 10Ks, maybe up to the half marathon, but that might be stretching it. So for those faster days, that's where a shoe like the Topo Cyclone would fit next to the Daily Trainer of the Phantom 3. And then for days where you're feeling a little bit beat up and you want some extra cushion and comfort on your run, and that's where you reach for a shoe in the max cushion category, and from Topo that is called the Atmos. This is a shoe that to me feels a lot like a Bondi, and I kind of wish that this is the direction the Bondi would start moving, because it kind of has a lot of the kind of stability that a Bondi has, but it's also very comfortable for those recovery run days. And then for your race day, Topo doesn't have a carbon plated option yet, but they do have a shoe that I think I'm going to put in the race spot because of the fact that it does have a higher amount of stack and it does have a full midsole of P-backs, and that is the Topo Spectre 2, which is very different than the first Topo Spectre. The Topo Spectre 2 is the first Spectre that uses full P-backs, a beaded P-backs foam, just like in the Cyclone 3, but you get it in a taller version that is also shaped a little bit differently to make it a little bit more stable and more useful for longer workouts. And Topo doesn't call this their race shoe, they call it more of like the long run training companion, things that you could use for bigger workouts that are going to require more mileage. And I've even been using it for some slower tempo runs and for some daily training miles as well. But because of the fact that it is bigger and taller than the Cyclone 3 and more intended in that marathon-ish type of space, I'm going to put it here as the race shoe for now in the Topo lineup. So if you are a neutral road runner looking at Topo, this is kind of how I would start to lay out that rotation. Now let's wrap up the video by going over the buying guide, and we'll also discuss some of the alternatives on the market. The Topo Cyclone 3 is a fast, flexible speed work shoe, ideal for runners who want to train with that road flat feel. And at $150, I love the price point of this shoe. But even then, because it's so similar to its predecessor, the Topo Cyclone 2, I would say if you're interested in this shoe, go to the Topo website right now. There's still some limited quantities and sizes of the Topo Cyclone 2 available, but that's discounted down to $109, which in 2025 is an incredible bargain. But let's also take a look at what some of the competition is doing to see how well some of that pricing holds up. Now, one shoe that immediately comes to mind when I think about a shoe like the Cyclone 3 is from Hoka, and this is the Cielo Road. There's a lot of similarities on paper between these two shoes. The Cielo Road has a low drop, a low stack height, all PIBA midsole and no plate. The upper is also surprisingly comfortable for a shoe that's intended to go as fast as this one is, and there is some rubber on the outsole, but they're trying to keep it to a minimum. Now this shoe is marketed more for 5K, 10K style racing, and so it's not necessarily a speed work shoe, but I'd use it probably very similar to how I would use the Topo Cyclone. It's not something that I'd reach for a bunch of easy running, but if I have some very fast, very short repetitions to do on the road or even on the track, the Cielo Road would be really fun to reach for. Now the Cielo Road comes in at $160, so you're paying a $10 premium. And the way that I would differentiate between these two shoes primarily would be that I feel like the Cielo Road has a little bit less flexibility to it. It's a little bit more stabilized than the Topo Cyclone would be. The Topo Cyclone is just super flexible, super neutral. So if you've got really great mechanics and want to be able to let your foot do what it wants to do, then the Cyclone 3 is going to be for you. But if you want something a bit more controlled, go with the Cielo Road. Now, the next shoe that I want to talk about is coming from the swoosh, and this is the Streakfly. I'm not sure if they're still making this shoe or if they're going to be updating it anytime soon, because it's been a while where we've been on this version of the Streakfly. But again, this shoe has a lot of similarities to the other shoes we've been talking about today. Low stack height, relatively low drop for a Nike shoe. It's got all P-backs in the midsole. They're using Zoom X here. And it has an upper that is very lightweight. The whole shoe is lightweight, and it fits really well for a shoe of this type. Again, especially for a shoe coming from Nike. There is a little bit of a plastic shank in this one, so that differentiates it from the two. But again, it's a shoe that's marketed as a 5K, 10K racer. I don't know that I'd want it for 5K, 10K racing, but if I had a lot of 400 meter repeats, 200 meter repeats, short, fast stuff on the road or even on the track, this is a shoe that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the Streakfly comes in at an even bigger price premium. This retails at $170, which I think is starting to get pretty expensive for what you're getting in this shoe, but you can find it at a discount because it's been around for a while now on the Nike website for about $119, $120. And I feel like at that price, becomes very interesting shoe to potentially pick up. Now, the way that I would decide between these shoes is that if you want to be able to do at least a little bit of easy running in it, I'm not saying that you're gonna do a lot of easy running in it, but if you want to do a little bit of easy running in it, I'd say that the Streakfly is the better option at the expense of some top end speed. But if you really just want to be able to turn over fast, you don't care how it does at easy running because you're buying this shoe because you want to turn over quickly and run fast, go with the Topo Cyclone 3. So let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about any of the shoes that I talked about today, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?